Welcome everyone today for the running class. It's springtime now, so everyone's going to be getting into a lot of that sort of stuff. So what you can expect from today is that we'll do some pre-running stuff, some post-running stuff, and even maybe some stuff that will help with making sure the right areas are nice and strengthened so that you don't get any pain or soreness while you are running. So there's going to be quite a few things right there for you. I've laid out a couple items for us as well today. So what I've got is a lacrosse ball, peanut. So if you have either one of those, great. Those can sort of suffice if you don't have like a foam roller. I mean, ideally today a foam roller is going to be really good for some of the exercises we're going to do. But I've also got some tubing and bands as well. One exercise, if you don't have a small enough like piece of tubing for it, really all that you would need or could use in replacement is like, you know, those elastics around the vegetables, like those blue ones, normally around like broccoli, asparagus, stuff like that. Those tend to have enough resistance, or even just like they're the right size for that exercise in particular. So we're going to go ahead and use something like that if you don't have a band that is small enough to kind of wrap around the foot and the toes. So that's where we're going to start. So what you can expect too is stuff that's going to be from the feet all the way up to knees and hips, because when you're running, all of those areas need to be nice and active. They need to have really good range of motion. So we're going to first go over, oh hi Stacy! We're going to first go over some stuff here about foot, knee, hip, all of that. I'm just going to make sure I am pinned so that you guys just see myself. Feel free to keep cameras on and the audio, as long as it's not like super loud where you are. That is definitely good. So what we're going to start with, the feet. So I just have a foam roller here. Sometimes if you have the half ones that like isn't fully around like this, that works really well. But something to just start getting the feet active. So this is something that a lot of people can do, even just to strengthen up their foot and everything like that. It's pretty common for people to collapse through the arch, or even just like through the foot here. So this is a pretty good exercise for those guys. So you're essentially gonna set up a foam roller. You can put weights on either side so that it doesn't move, but then you're gonna put your foot just on the top of it. And what you're gonna start with is you're going to, making sure knee is over top of ankle and isn't wobbling, you're going to lift the toes, spread them out, and come back down. It's a good way to get those small muscles at the bottom of the foot to really engage. And then you lay the foot down. So making sure your knee isn't wobbling. I apologize, maybe I should have worn like colorful pants today with the black wall. I'm just going to do about 10 of those. Don't worry, we can even like progress this to something else if you're finding this just a little bit easy. But I'm going to do the other foot first before we give that progression. So this is sort of level one of it. You're going to go put that foot down. Having the foam roller there is going to mimic a little bit of some of that ground reaction force too, because the ground that we normally walk on isn't overly stable. So you're really trying to work with those smaller little proprioceptive muscles, those feeler muscles, to keep that foam roller pretty steady, pretty sturdy. You can see on this leg, like, for me at least, like, it's got a little bit more wobble to it compared to the other side. And you might find that with your own self too. So. Now, to progress that one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this band here. I've kind of looped it so that it fits my foot, but this is where, like, using that little elastic from your vegetables can come up. So I've just put it around my big toe. I'm coming across the foot, and then it's going to the back of my heel. So it's sort of like a little loop that we've done there, and it's just going to dangle. So what this does, if it's like relatively tight, it's going to essentially pull your toe into a little bit of an extended position. So you're going to come into that extended position and then really have to push down with the foot. Your big toe is really important for helping with balancing the foot out. Helps with a lot of weight transfer, helps with the propulsion when you are running or walking as well. So we need to make sure it is good and strong. Again, we're going to do about 10 of this one. Just because I find like we need to make sure our feet are nice and stable as well as our hips. So we're kind of starting from the ground up. For those of you who have like troubles maybe activating your glute, this is going to be a really good one because your big toe is very neurologically connected to your glutes. So if you don't have good function of your like big toe, your feet, that can translate up to the hips and cause you to like almost have weakness sometimes too. Pretty common where we see that actually. Also, what I like about this one is you're trying to force that big toe out as well, so it's helping with strengthening that toe so that it can abduct, which just means pulling away from that midline. It's very common for a lot of runners too to like have that toe want to be going towards the other toes. We want it to actually stay nice and straight for the long lifetime. Because if it starts to go over towards those other toes, then we start to have like foot problems, stuff like that. So make sure when you're selecting your shoes too, you have really good runners that have a wide enough toe box for you. So I'm just going to switch over here to the other side, balance challenge, and switch over to this opposite foot right there. Kick that around. Okay, so again, it's kind of pulling me into that extended position and going and pulling down. Again, for me on this foot, if I had to be really picky about how my toes are placed, my left one does go in a bit, so I have to work a bit harder at that. So notice your own self. I'm just going to do a few more on this one. And one more. Okay. So that helps get the feet all nice and warmed up. Again, really good for strengthening as well. I mean, you're not always going to have a foam roller in a band, maybe handy if you're going to some of the races that happen in the spring or summer, but you will tend to have some of that stuff at your house. Another thing we want to look at is like that pre-activation before you're starting to run. So what we're going to then start with, so I'm going to just turn to the side so you guys can see. So you're going to go up and lower, and up and lower. Kind of get into a little bit of a jump with it. This helps get like a little bit of balance, but also like hips engaged a bit. A lot of the track athletes will do stuff like this. I'm just going to turn to the front. So you're going to go there. So this is part of the beginning, and like normally it would be active too, but because I don't have a lot of space, we're just going to do it stationary. It works too. Whoop. See, balance. This is why we worked on foot first, just because it'll help with that. So it kind of gets the hip flexors a little engaged for us as well. Okay, and then what the next one would be like you're going to come up and out. So up and out. So you're kind of going like quick but slow. So it helps with that reaching aspect of it. Again, it's kind of getting the hip flexors in there, but you're getting the full reach and also heel down in there. And as you do a few more, like you kind of get the idea of how it's supposed to go. You can get into a rhythm. We activated the foot so that like when we come and do something like this, we have better engagement through the floor. Okay, next one here. So you're going to do like a couple of lengths of that generally if you're going to be on a field. So maybe like 20 feet is sort of the goal of how far you would go for your length, 10 to 20 feet. And doing a couple lengths of those to like warm up. And then another really good one would be like coming and doing sort of the hip out. Again, when you're doing things for running, if you're going to go pre-running, you want it to be active. You don't want it to be super stationary, long holds, because then you're not getting your muscles active and awake. You're kind of getting on the sleepy note. Those long static stretches are more suited for post-running. So you'll see runners do a lot of these things because they need to make sure that everything is good and loosened up. So this is really great for like sprinters. I've seen this lots with track athletes too. Okay, so again, that's kind of about 2 lengths, maybe a little bit more. So you should feel a little bit, you know, tired or just like lightly worked from there. And then like what you would then want to also do is target some of the glutes. So you can take a thicker band. This is like our lightest one that we have here. Whoop. I need to make my loop bigger. Okay, make my loop a little bit bigger because it's going to now go around like my knees. So I want it to have some tension, but not like so much where I can't control it. But that's why I say like this is our lightest band, and I could probably do heavier, but this is the one that I had fastest and most accessible. I'm going to try and make it wide. Sometimes if it's thin, it's a little uncomfortable. Okay, so a lot of people might be kind of familiar with this one. So a lot of the time people will do like where you just go side to side, right? That's a pretty common one for the glutes. Another way that we can train the glutes, get them active for running, is actually doing it in the forward and reverse direction. So essentially you're going to be in that same position, keep that power position and not bent like super far. It's just like very slight. It's like if I was to be in hockey or ringette, like if people are familiar with that, like what your power position is. It's that slight little bit of knee bend. So we're not getting really far down. See, there's just that little bit. So we're going to get into that little bit and you're essentially just going to walk forward and walk forward, stuff like that, okay? But I'm going to go side to side here. This might be a little bit better visual for you all. So you're going to kind of come and wrap around, keeping knees nice and straight out. They're not coming in. You're going to feel that right here in your glutes. I like to put my hands on my hips personally for this one. And I'm just going to come to the edge of my mat and then I'm going to start to go back. So it's similar positioning. I'm not taking big steps, I'm taking just little steps and walking backwards. Doing this in a backwards direction, a lot of people don't tend to work this. This is really good for, you know, more of that posterior chain, your glutes, your hamstrings, all those guys. We're very good at going forwards, but we don't always go backwards as much. And we're just going to do like a couple lengths of this. If you feel like you need to take a break before like going into that second forwards and back, or if you need to take a little mini break between, go for it. Again, keeping that like nice power position. I'm not like jumping up and down, staying nice and solid. Take like a little break if you need to like shake it out. You should be feeling the burn in the glutes, but it should be good. It shouldn't feel too uncomfortable or discomforting. We're going to do at least another one. You might feel this a little bit more on one side compared to the other. You might have a strong side, you might have a weak side. Okay. So, just going to take that out now. So, we've done a little bit of activation to our glutes. We've opened up the thighs and the hips, everything in there. We've got the foot going. That also serves as like a good knee stabilizer one. Like I said, sometimes people tend to like cave in with the knees or even cave in with the feet. So we're trying to work on making sure everything's nice and straight, everything stays nice and aligned. That's going to be very important. So those are really good like warm-up things. What I would then say you could do for another warm-up, a lot of people tend to have sore calves. like we said, we don't want to get into doing static stretches. So this is something that you can do a little more actively while you are waiting. If you're, comfortable getting a little bit more on your hands and knees, most people tend to be okay with that. So then you're just going to get into like a higher position, and I'm going to keep one leg straight and one leg bent. And I'm going to try and draw the straight leg, try and drive that heel down to the floor so that this whole leg gets nice and straight, so we keep like a nice little stretch. Some people might feel this as high as their hamstring as well. And that could just mean that maybe you have a little bit more neural tension in the body. And the way I like to describe neural tension is like, even though you're not experiencing a numbing or tingling sensation, like the nerve is sort of at its tightest point, and it just makes it feel like a more intense stretch. You're just going to kind of go into and out of that. Do that a few times. Get those guys going. You're not holding for too long, like probably about 5 seconds max is all you want to hold down in that calf stretch position. That's right before some of the stretch reflex like kicks in, if you want to think of it in a physiological way. That's why we're not holding it for super long, because we don't want to have a huge stretch reflex. We want to warm up those muscles, get them ready, get them excited. And then you can go for your run and such like that. Okay. And then like another one you can do if you want to do this like on your like pre-runs, if you're at your house doing it, or if you're at a race, you can do this too. No obligation to. I'd say like most people probably won't want to lay fully on the ground. But I've just put a band between my knees here, and how I'm going to set up is my feet are going to be together and my hips are going to be out, so my knees are facing outwards. Okay? So this one, we've done some really good core exercises in a lot of these previous classes, and this one will definitely require some good core activation, core stability as well. This is a bit of an advanced one, but I know that a lot of people who are getting into running or are already runners, they tend to be like, pretty active in those things. So we want to make sure we're giving something that's going to help you guys perform at your best. So like I said, feet together, hips a bit apart, because you're going to get this outer part of your legs active here. What I want you guys to focus on is that hips are tilted to ribs, so you should have like nice flat back, and then you're going to lift up, keeping your core nice and straight, and you're going to be out. Okay, so this is like a frog thrust, basically, is what it would be called. If you're someone who doesn't want to get all the way down onto the ground, you could use like a chair or a bench for this exercise. You want to make sure your legs are keeping out and core staying nice and straight. We don't want to feel this in the back at all. If you feel it in the back, stop, reset, make sure your core is nice and strong and engaged. This is pretty common to like feel this in your back if you're not engaged through your core. This is just like another way to train those glutes, get them active beforehand too. getting a little bit more like your glute max, but also your glute med by helping out with here. Couple more. And core is like super important for running as well, because it's essentially like the base and foundation for like good healthy hips and spine. Two more. Perfect. Okay. So those are kind of some good pre-warm-up exercises, stuff like that for running. Another thing that I would say we're gonna go through right now is some mobility for runners too. And I feel like mobility sometimes gets forgotten in most kind of realms because we don't always love to do it. I think a lot of people associate it with like stretching as well, whereas like it has to do with like a little bit more the mobility of the joints. So what we're gonna do now, so again, this is a bit of an advanced one, but I think you guys, should be able to do it. So I've just taken a lacrosse ball, and what I'm gonna do, you can take a bigger ball if you want. I'm just gonna put it in the crook of my knee. Okay? So this is a bit more for like mobility cool down. So you're gonna come into some flexion, so you're gonna bring your like hip into like your chest, and you're gonna come out, and you're gonna kind of extend back, and then you're gonna come back in. So thinking like your leg is a bit of a joy stick. You can do this without the ball if the ball is making you feel a little bit like uncomfortable. If it feels like you're getting like a hamstring, calf, glutes, cramp, don't worry about the ball so much. This is just another way to like target into those hips a little bit. So just gonna readjust the ball there. Do one more in that direction. So that's about 5. We're gonna go and do 5 the opposite direction. So now I'm gonna push back, come up, and then come back down into that flexed position. I'll do about 2 more. So I'm not like just whipping the leg around either, I'm kind of going slow and controlled through it. And that's what I always say is like really good for mobility. Like don't just blow through it, don't just pow through it, because then you're not going to be getting as much into the joint opening as you could be. So we're going to come on this side again, ball is in the crook of the knee. Come up. Now you guys might see me struggle a little bit more on this side. Again, those of you who know me know my left side is kind of my struggle point. I am working on it, it's getting there. But it's still a little hard. Years of ringette and dog shows. Dog shows you turn basically just to the left, so.
had 2 more on this side. So this will be the last one for the forwards. Now we're going to go reverse that. Go back to the side, and then down and in. Up, in. Couple more. Whoop. Almost just relaxed on the ball there. Almost got away from me. If you feel like you need like a bigger ball, the lacrosse ball is too small, go for it. You're allowed. Lacrosse ball is really small and makes you have to like really bend in there. What I like about that is it takes away some of the influence of the hamstring, so you're getting even like a little bit more mobility to the glute as well. So that's a really awesome one there for mobility wise. And then also getting into a 90-90 position. So again, this is something that you can do at your house. You don't have to do this like if you're at a race. So you're going to get into one leg 90, the other leg 90. And then what you're going to do here, you're going to bring both knees up and switch over. Okay? You're going to do that again, both knees up and switch over. It's okay if the bum moves across the floor a little bit. That's actually pretty normal for this one. If you can't do that very well yourself, if you're struggling, you can just do where you sit back and bring the knees side to side as well, in as far of a comfortable range as you have, because yeah, if this position is like too sore for you, you feel like you can't get into it, don't push yourselves to get into it because it's pretty complex. And then the switch over can also just be pretty hard for some people. And this is something that like I personally have had to work on a lot, because there was one point, I don't know, 6 years ago I think now, where like I couldn't even get into a squat very well because my left hip was so cranky, so sore, so pinchy. So I've come quite a long way. So if I can come quite a way, I think a lot of other people can too. So and I'm just going to do one more as I'm traveling towards the camera there. So again, really good exercise there. And then as far as some of your ankles, sometimes the ankle can get jammed if we've had previous sprains to the ankle. So most commonly people will sprain going inwards, not as much going outwards, because like you can tell like I have a lot more inversion compared to eversion, so I can like bring my feet in a lot easier than I can outwards, which is common for like everyone because of some of the bone structures, ligaments, everything that's there, and we naturally just don't tend to evert as much as we invert. So that's why most commonly sprains go inwards. But there's a small bone at the front of the ankle here that can shift. So it tends to shift forward. Sometimes it will rotate inwards or outwards, sort of depending on what you do. But if it shoots forward, you can imagine you're not going to have as good like range of motion. So ideally you want to be able to bring your toes up to your nose, and you should be able to have good range, and you should be able to point down and have really good range. People who have sprained their ankles a lot or have a lot of ankle or foot problems, some of them can only get to like maybe here for like good ankle range of motion, whereas you should be able to get into like at least 90 degrees and sometimes more for some people. Personally, I feel like I have a little bit excessive dorsiflexion. That's what this position is called. So, I mean, don't worry if you can't get your ankles bendy as mine. But yeah, most of the time, like some people will be in a, like they won't even be able to get 90 degrees. So we're gonna work through some mobility there. And I'm just gonna grab a pillow for my, my one knee. This floor is a little bit hard, so feel free to like use a pillow or something like that under yours. Generally, I would take a band with like super high tension. This is just like a little bit too light tension. So taking something with really high tension, you come to the front of that ankle joint, and then you're gonna pull tight with the band, and then you're just gonna place the knee on top of that. So then everything is nice and stacked over one another. A lot of the time you'll see people like they don't want your knee going over your toes. This is actually an exercise where that is okay. So we're at the front of the heel there, and what you're gonna do, your foot is gonna stay nice and planted, nice and strong down, and you're just gonna go and guide your knee over your second toe. So you should feel like this band is pulling that ankle bone back a little bit. If you don't feel as much tension there, maybe go in and like readjust more tension on it, just as such. So you can go into and out of, into and out of. And like I said, sometimes that bone can rotate a little bit too. It's not just necessarily stuck forwards. So what you can do from here is go in, sort of rotate out, and rotate in, and then come back down. And then track over, rotate out, rotate in. So you're doing like little circles. This is a great one for people who feel like they get jammy ankles. Helps unjam it. We're going to do about 10. So I'm just going to do maybe a couple more. And one more. So you're going to go over and kind of rotating. Alright. So now I'm going to take that guy off. I'm going to switch gears, do the left side. So get this at the front of my ankle. Pull it really nice and tight. I'm going to go track over. So I always like to start with like a couple front to back. And then we're going to go and kind of do the rotation. And it doesn't matter if you go like out first or in first. It's sort of what feels most natural to you. But like I said, this is like definitely one of the few exercises that if your knees go over your ankles, that's what you want. It's totally okay. I'd even say like a lot of these exercises are really great for people who even just have pain like with walking. So I'm actually going to go for a nice walk up to Nose Hill with my sister after this. So yeah, it's got lots of hills and stuff like that, so this is going to be really great for that. I'll feel nice and loosened up, nice and activated, the right things are going to be working how they should. Just one more. All right. So that is essentially the bulk of the class. So we did some pre-workout or pre-running and stuff like that, pre-activation stuff, and then we just finished it off with some mobility that is really good for people who are running, walking, trying to do any kind of just light exercise routines, physical activity as the weather is getting nicer here. So what you guys can expect from the next couple of classes is we have meditation for low back coming up this Thursday at 12 o'clock, and then the one after that is going to be a yoga for digestion, which will also be on a Saturday there. That one I probably will join in on, just because of my own stuff. I think that'd be really awesome. So thank you everyone, and I hope you guys have a really great rest of your Saturday, and thanks for joining.